Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be able to report on the end of the first stage of the Local Government Excellence Program. Look, there were a few speed bumps along the way, but we've developed a stable and robust program, and I'm very confident in the results. 16 reports have been released, and today we will look at what those results look like and some of the issues that have been raised during the program. I'm also pleased to announce that 12 new councils have registered for the second tranche, so that would take us up to around 30 councils being assessed by the end of next year, which is 37 or 38% of all councils. So we're very pleased with progress in the program overall. There's a slide on the next slide is all of the councils that were in the first tranche. They're a mix of urban and rural, and so I've been very happy with the mix. There's some more metros coming in, and David's in the queue for an assessment very soon as well, so I'm pleased to see Dunedin City Council coming in round 2. The next slide this is the look and the feel of the reports. To get to the reports, as you'll recall from other discussions I've had with you, there's a series of steps. There's a performance assessment framework which has 95 questions spread across the 4 priority areas. Councils are indicated what good looks like for each of the questions. They fill in a self-assessment and then they are assessed. That document, that final document, is an assessment that remains confidential to the assessment board. The reports which you see on that slide, they are the reports that go to the councils and on out into the community. The decision to release the reports remain with the board, but they become the councils to control once we have decided that they are released. The chart of ratings frequency there is the first look at what the results look like. I have 5 of these charts, 1 for the overall ratings and 1 each for the grades in the 4 priority areas. This looks like a normal distribution. We haven't goal-seeked a normal distribution. This is the way that it has come out, but I will say that as we have done each rating and each grade for each of the priority areas for each of the councils, there's certainly been a bit of iteration and calibration. So we're comfortable with the relativities, we're comfortable with the distribution of ratings, and we haven't had to do any scaling. So I referred earlier on to the fact that I think that the scheme is stable and robust, and that's the first look at it. I turn to the next slide. This is a list of some of the common themes, the positive common themes that have emerged. Governance varies. You'd be unsurprised about that, but people's appreciation of what governance is and how they execute it varies. But there is a high correlation between sound governance and overall performance. That may seem a self-evident thing to say, but it stands out. When we find weak governance, we tend to find weak performance in councils. And I think it's worth saying because some of our focus is on improvements in governance. Financial planning is generally prudent and councils generally spend within their means, but of course they are restrained by their own desire to maintain low rate increases, and sometimes decisions might be made for the sake of holding rates down rather than the sake of investment and renewal planning. As a rule, asset management is aligned with council vision and goals, but you'll see on the areas for improvement the converse of that. In some councils they're not. There's a very consistent level of consumer engagement across the councils. If there's one area that scored well, it is the 4th of the priority areas, which is engagement with the community. And also there's a very high level of councillors and staff being active in their communities. Whilst there is maybe some questions around asset management planning and the spending decisions, we have noticed that councils have been technically strong in their infrastructure, their engineering departments. I could turn to the next slide, which is where some council could make improvements. So, we have observed on a number of occasions that there could be stronger definition and adherence to roles. For example, we like to hear that mayors and CEOs know the difference between their roles, know what their roles are, and stick to them. And that's not always the case. We would like to see a greater alignment between the vision, the long-term plan, asset management plans, and the annual planning process. We also see a patchiness in terms of the justification for the business case for some of the projects that go ahead or don't go ahead. We'd like to see a greater focus on asset management. We've observed the fact that the technical competence and the engineering competence seems strong, but this point is a slightly different point, and that is we'd like the councillors to be more aware of the core business, managing their infrastructure assets. We'd also like to see some strength around the audit and risk committees and the use of independent chairs. Risk management, there's a very wide range of understanding about what risks management is and what risks there are in some of the councils. And lastly, in the things we'd like to see more improvements is that relationships with Maori and iwi is not just something you do on Tuesdays. It's not just a department. It's not just something you talk about as part of a meeting. Strong relationships with Maori iwi is an ongoing engagement, representation and recognition of Maori iwi values in the communities. Go to the next slide, please, Helen, thanks. There's already evidence of the 16 councils whose reports have been released that their findings are being used. And you can see there, I talk about more structured professional development for councillors, which matches an area for improvement that we've just referred to. Annual self-reviews for the council and its committees is part of looking at governance and looking at skills and looking at what people's roles are. Improved health and safety reporting, we're pleased to see that. And we have seen where some councils are using the reports to prioritise and develop programs, and in fact 2 of the councils that have already been assessed wanted to go into the assessment program for next year. In addition to the 12 who've already signed up, there'll be another 2 who are new assessments where councils have already responded to the suggestions we've made and want to be reassessed quickly in the hope that they get a higher rating. And goodness gracious me, I hope that they do get higher ratings the second time round, but the program is set up to be reassessments every 3 years. So it's interesting that of those first 18, 2 who already want to come back around. On my last slide, you know the outcome of this. The prospects for years 2 and 3 were released in October, and 12 councils registered their interest, plus another 2 who have been assessed that want to come back into the program. The assessments will start in January and continue through 2018 and into 2019. And we will still take expressions of interest for councils that want to come into the program. So we haven't locked it off. And I'm happy to take questions.
Toby, you said that projects need to be founded on stronger business cases. Are you seeing greater adoption of the better business case approach by councils, and would you support its adoption if so?
We don't have a longitudinal survey, so I can't see greater adoption of better business cases thus far, but we'd certainly like to see greater adoption of better business case as we go forward.
Okay, thanks.
There was a mixed adoption of the use of better business cases, and the assessors raised this council by council. I think I'm going to answer a question you haven't asked, and that is, one of the things that we found is the richness of the program comes from the assessment stage. Some of the councils have found that a very engaging and revealing process in and of itself. We, of course, are focused on the reports at the end and those going out into the community. But the richness from the engagement and self-examination has been commented on a number of times. And the better business case is an example of where councils have said, oh, okay, that's what you're looking for. We're not strong in that area, and that is something that we will get straight on to.
The reason I asked is I've been to quite a number of presentations recently where people have emphasised that this has worked really well for them. So I was just wondering how widespread that is, or whether it's just sort of anecdotally I'm picking that up. But that's cool. Yeah.